Yo, welcome in everybody to Fantasy Firebox here on Saturday morning. I'm your host, as always, Tony Jigsaw Cutillo. Follow me at Cutillo23. But as always, this is brought to you, see, right here on the hat, on the emblem, up top on the overlay, Win Daily Sports. Follow at Win Daily Sports, WinDailySports.com. Sign up for the free month. Get in the free Discord chat. Like we say every week, I guarantee that you will absolutely love it. Huge community of all fantasy degenerates, I like to call it, because we're all nuts, right? But a lot of fun insight, a lot of good tools. You will not be disappointed when you sign up. Now, week 15, man, coming in like a storm, right? We have no idea what to expect when it comes to fantasy football this week, right? We just don't. I mean, this has been one of the weirdest years I can recall. Trevor, what is up, buddy? I know, Trev, you probably doing the same thing, thinking, what the hell's going on in week 15, right? There's so many different things that have happened, whether it be injuries, COVID, non-productive players, guys that just haven't produced when I could go on and on and on, right? On and on and on. I mean, right there, do I go with the God's quarterback, Joe Burrow, or Josh Allen? We're going to get to that. 1 second, Trev. 1 second, because, again, the whole thing about what I start doing with this show is kind of start formulating like my NBA shows and my NBA posts, because I think it's pretty cool when we could just get a core value of players and who we want to build around, that we add the value around. That's what I do in NBA and MLB. So instead of just going player by player, position by position, that's what we're going to do here. We did it last week. It was fun. And we're gonna do it again this week, right? We're gonna do it again this week. So let me adjust this so I'm actually looking at you, the audience. But right away, you know, we already have 3 postponed games, and they're already hindering what we do when it comes from a lineup standpoint. Yo, Prince, what's up, man? I've been sleeping on the NBA. I know. I know you're gonna hammer me. I know. Listen. Christmas time, man. 3 kids, the wife, the fam. I got to do what I got to do, right? So I'll be back. I promise. Like I've been jonesing for that NBA fix. Okay, I think tonight I'm gonna sneak some NBA analytics in for tonight. I know it's a Saturday night, but we all want to make some Christmas money, right? So we're gonna get into that. But Trev, to get back to your Josh Allen statement, let's just go right up in the beginning and talk about cores, because I don't want to do this all day. We all got to handle our business, right? No matter what. And if I don't handle my business, somebody could get all up in my ass if I didn't handle it. So I got to do what I got to do, right? So we all know that. So and again, on that note, like just by Prince and everybody else, I just got to say thank you. This thing is so much fun. I mean, you hear a lot of people that always say, oh, you get into these communities, these people are not, you weed out those idiots, right? But when you get a lot of love and support from the people that consistently follow you and you have fun with, that's what it's all about. That's why I love doing this shit, man. That's what it's all about. So I continue, Prince. We're going to get into it today. Absolutely. But I thank you, my man, for your support. As always, Trevor, I ain't got to say enough to you, man. You already know. You already know what we're all about here, right? So let's go right away for core players, right? Our core players for week 15. So this is what I want to do. You got to go just like in the NBA when I pick my 3 or 4 core players. We're just gonna. I don't leave. Listen, I'm gonna leave tight end out of it, and I gotta be honest with you. I gotta call it major violation, and I don't know if he's watching right now. Okay, but I am in 3 season long leagues, and I only did 3. I went from 15 to 3. Okay, so I did 3, made the playoffs in all 3 leagues, all good. So I made the 3, which I snuck in there, man. I'm gonna be honest, snuck in there. But the guy, Adam, I'm calling you out, man. The guy, listen, I love you to death, but how do you leave your tight end spot empty? What happened? And guess who your tight end is? Travis Kelce, who gives you 48 points on your bench. You just opened it up for me, bro. I don't know what's going on. So I know he's got to be mad. I don't know if something happened where he clicked the wrong button and didn't realize late, but it's a gift. It's an early Christmas gift from Chris Kringle himself, dropping it on Jigsaw's lap. So I will take it every single day, right? But to get into core players, week 15, I think I'm going to be honest with you, Trav. I'm going to go right into it. And for me, core players, quarterback has got to be Josh Allen. We've had question marks on Josh Allen all year long, right? Because that offense has not looked the same. And it was dominant last year. I mean, listen, Stephon Diggs, that's all you got to say. Last year was dominant. This year, not so much. I mean, we all look at the 9-6 loss to Jacksonville because listen, you lost to a team whose head coach is no longer relevant anymore, right? And Urban Meyer. I mean, that was a joke anyway. I don't know how you only muster 6 points against that Jacksonville team. So last week, you started to finally see it. You've seen Josh Allen open up, right? He dropped 40, right? Drops 40 for a DraftKings total. The week before, only 12. But you get to see what he was doing last week. And what I will tell you is when Josh Allen throws above 62% completion percentage, he's going to drop 35 to 40 on you. That's what he's going to do. That the odds are in your favor, okay, when he does that. And you look at week 10, I know he was at 75%, but the problem is in week 10, he literally only threw the ball 21 to 28 times. They were against the Jets. The game was out of hand. So I can't go, oh, Jigsaw, you said 35. Listen, he got 25, but that's against the Jets. That's what happens. It's a garbage game, right? But last week, you've seen it against Tampa Bay, who, even though the secondary is hurt, they did get Richard Sherman back. They still have a really good linebacking core, obviously, with David and White. So you have to look at and Vita Vey in the middle. How can you stop Vita Vey? Up the middle with the run game. I mean, that's probably why they decided not to run the ball at all, except for the 29-yard scamper from Devin Singletary. They really didn't do much. And Zach Moss, again, a healthy scratch. We're going to get into that later. But Josh Allen drops 42 last week. But the big thing is 109 yards rushing, 9.1 yards per carry, or I should say per run, because obviously he's not carrying a ball. So I think you've seen the shift last week in Sean McDermott. Because if you look at Josh Allen, and this is just specifically through his running ability, go back to week 10, 3 yards, 11, 18, 43, 39, but his attempts average about 4. Last week, they went to 12. He tripled his rushing attempts. So in my opinion, what's going to happen is Sean McDermott finally said, listen, we have no consistent running backs on this team that I can trust. We've tried. It's not working. Even though Matt Breida looks like he's got a spark, Zach Moss has been a healthy scratch. Singletary is a pass-catching back. That's what he is. So they decided, let's put the ball in Josh Allen's hands. And look what Josh Allen has been able to do. So because of that, he's my core quarterback this week. So my core starts with Josh Allen. 8,100, highest quarterback on the slate. I don't care. I'm paying up against Carolina. They are not a very good defense. That team is still going through some, I don't want to say growing pains, but definitely some stressful times under Matt Rule, firing Joe Brady. There are a lot of interesting things going on with that team. We'll see what Matt Rule does next year. But for right now, that team is not a team that looks like they're going to be competitive going forward, especially towards the latter state of this season. So Buffalo's looking to make that playoff surge. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Just like I say, start your studs. Buy in to the good teams at this time in fantasy football, because not only do they have things to play for, but their players have pride and they want to go to that next step. So we all know expectations are through the roof, but we also know that they already have these abilities. We're not hoping, right? We're not like Bon Jovi here living on a prayer saying, hey, listen, I hope this guy produces. No, we've seen what Josh Allen can do. So for me, core Josh Allen is the guy. Now, running back, it's very interesting. Okay. Running back for me gets, and again, no, not everybody's going to agree with this, right? But that's what this is all about. Just because you don't agree doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to work. My man Mike checking in. Yo, what's up, Mike? So Jacksonville players. Listen, man. Again, it's so crazy the way that this year has gone on. Trey checking in. Wentz versus New England. Oh, man, Trey. Damn, this is tough. This is tough. And I'm going to bring my man Dan in here in a second. So Wentz versus New England or Huntley versus Green Bay, 16-team league. No other starting quarterbacks are available. Man, listen, I'm not a Wentz guy. Okay, obviously from Philadelphia, not a Wentz guy. I'm gonna get my man Dan Green's thoughts on this in a sec. I'll let him. He's in the green room right now. He's gonna ponder this a little bit, so he's gonna come in with some heat. So I'm looking at Carson Wentz and I'm looking at Huntley. So here's the thing with Huntley. Huntley has to use his legs, right? 100%. He's got to use his legs. So his legs are gonna what? Excuse me. His legs is going to be the production part of his point total. One thing I will say about Green Bay, they have very, very good edge rushers who are basically hybrid linebackers that can really get after it. And their linebackers, obviously, are very quick. So not to say they're going to shut him down, but obviously they know that's not Lamar Jackson back there. Again, also have to look at Marquise Brown is looking like a game time decision. I don't think Marquise Brown is going to play. So in essence, you have a flawed running game under Mr. Huntley. You have a flawed receiving core. I mean, you're going to have to put all your trust in Rashad Bateman and all your trust into the tight end. So for me, this is a tough one. This is a real. I mean, Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman, I don't think is enough to carry Mr. Huntley. So I would have to pivot here. And even though, preface this by me saying this. New England always goes after the best player, right? They always want to stop the best player. So who is the best player on the Indianapolis Colts? We know it's Jonathan Taylor. So they're going to go all in on Jonathan Taylor, which means Carson Wentz is going to have to throw the ball more than he's used to. So for me, Trey, even though it's new, I have to go Carson Wentz here. I have to go Carson Wentz because I think he gives you the most promise from those two guys. If they're the only two guys, think of it this way. Now, if Carson Wentz was the best player going against a Bill Belichick defense, I possibly would say maybe I go Huntley just because I think the best case scenario is maybe Huntley gets some rushing yards and runs one in. But for me, they always shut down the best player. They always shut down the best player. So Trey says, I thought they always shut down. They shut the best player down. So I'll give you, for instance, doesn't have to always be the wide receiver. So when they play Atlanta, Kyle Pitts came in and Kyle Pitts was on a mission, right? Then all of a sudden Kyle Pitts comes in and what does he get? 3 points. They shut down Kyle Pitts from Atlanta. And I know he's a tight end kind of in your receiving mold, but they're going to stack the box and they're going to make Carson Wentz beat him through the air because you have to also remember, their number one receiver, Michael Pittman Jr., he's not that great. Listen, he's good. He's not elite territory. So they're not worried about Michael Pittman Jr. stopping them. They're worried about the best player, which is Jonathan Taylor. So they're worried about Jonathan Taylor beating them. So for me, yes, you're right. They shut down the number one, but no, it's always the best player, whether that be quarterback, running back, receiver. So for me, I go Carson Wentz. I'm going to go Carson Wentz. And I hope it works out for you, man. But as always, I'll just give you why. Go with your gut. I mean, Jigsaw ain't always right. None of us are always right, right? So I'm just telling you that based on those analytics and what the history of that team is, I would say I would go with Carson Wentz. So Trey, listen, man, make sure you let me know. I'm very curious how you make out for real, because I love these. Like sometimes I can run them down, sometimes I forget, go back, replay the show because I want to know too. I don't want to give everybody bad advice. So I'm curious to see how that works out. So good luck to you when it comes to that decision. Now I'm bringing my man Dan Green in, who had some technical difficulties today. And that's the thing. When you do these kind of shows, sometimes you get some technical difficulties, right? So we're gonna bring Dan in and we're gonna flip the screen. Yo, there he is. And Dan, how's that technical difficulties working out, buddy?
Well, first off, can you hear me?
You're a little low. You're a little low.
Oh,
so we're getting there. So pump that volume up a little bit.
All right. How oh my God. How about now? How about now?
Yeah, there you go. Now we got you. So go.
Carson Wentz
or Mr. Huntley. What's that?
Carson Wentz.
I mean, it's kind of an easy one, right? It's got to be Carson Wentz.
You can't listen. You can't gamble with a guy that's just getting introduced to the system per se, and Wentz can still put up 2 touchdowns, 250, and I think you would take that to the bank.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, he's going to throw the ball a lot. He is, and I'll tell you what. This goes a little more into this, but I wouldn't be shocked, I should say, to see Nyheim Hines play a big role in this game. I know he hasn't recently, but they're going to have to do kind of a lot of things that flip up this really good New England defense. So I wouldn't be shocked if Frank Reich employs that Nyheim Hines effect. Now, Dan, I'm in the cores right now. And, like I said, I like to structure this. And you've been on my NBA shows with me. I like to do that core kind of nucleus. And I started with quarterback. For me, my core quarterback was Josh Allen. I'm going to get yours in a second. And we're just starting on running backs. And I think running backs, very, very interesting dynamic this week because of obviously COVID. And for this show purposes, I'm not, I always go by the Millie Maker, right? Whatever the Millie Maker is. And the Millie Maker right now is not taking those games on Tuesday night. So we're for this show taking it out of there. When we want to talk that, we can talk about that on Monday because there's no definitive word if those games are 100% going to happen. So we can't predict the future. I wish I could. I'd be a tarot card reader and I make tons of friggin' money, but I can't. So we're going to go right with the running back situation. And right now, if you look at this slate, the number one running back on the DraftKings board and the FanDuel board is Najee Harris. Now, he's not my core guy. So you have to go through these, every single one of these players. And Najee Harris, even though I like him, he's not in my core. Ezekiel Elliott, who's the next guy, Dan, he's got lingering knee issues, played with a brace last week, still does not look right. I think he's really toughing out, especially with Tony Pollard not even there. And then you got Corey Clement getting some carries, the Super Bowl Philadelphia Eagle legend. So I'm not even on Ezekiel Elliott. My core guy, how crazy is this, is going to be Myles Gaskin this week at the running back position. And let me just tell you that I think this is that week. Now, there's no Jalen Waddle, okay? So you have to look at it that way. There's no Jalen Waddle. So you have to think about how is this offense going to change again against the New York Jets. 117 yards per game on the ground, the 32nd ranked offense when it comes to opposing fantasy football players. You have to go all in my opinion, on Myles Gaskin. Now, Dan, I know both of us and a lot of listeners out there have probably been burnt by Myles Gaskin before, but this is not the week. So for me, he is going to make up that pass catching ability by Jalen Waddle. Because remember, Jalen Waddle is that guy that's the yak guy, right? We talked about that before. He's not the deep guy. He's a yak guy. So now you need another yak guy. And who's going to fill in? So for me, it's going to be that wheel route, that fade out to the running back, the screens, and that has Myles Gaskin written all over. What do you think, buddy?
I understand your logic, and you're absolutely 100% correct. I've been burned by him countless times this year. He is borderline on my dead to me list, but I have him in my top 15 running back rankings, basically for the reasons you've mentioned. Strong enough to, I guess, go core. I probably would lean other people, but that being said, it's a good play, and his price is damn good. I mean, 5,600. So
yeah, it's and again, this is all about what's going on right now, right? So you have all these games pushed, you have a ton of injuries, so you got to kind of look at the board and say what makes sense. And I don't know about you, I can't trust Najee Harris or Ezekiel Elliott.
No, Zeke is totally an afterthought. Now, Najee Harris, he just leads the league in volume, snap count, week after week after week. But for me, if you want to get my surprise running back or guy that I'm really digging is David Montgomery this week.
Ooh, okay.
I talk about favorable matchups. The Minnesota defense stinks, and I think they're going to lean very heavily. And I'm looking for a breakout game from David Montgomery. I really am.
So why do you think that? Because listen, this is the funny thing. I got my own theories here. But Mike Zimmer is a defensive guy. And if you remember a few years ago, the Minnesota defense was laying the wood, right? It was like, yo, we don't want to play Minnesota's defense. I mean, they were shutting a lot of people down, right? And then all of a sudden, Mike Zimmer got involved with a very a provocative female that I think right. So may have his, and then he got the eye. So here's the thing: he got the eye surgery, and then he hooked up with the female. So I'm thinking maybe his mind's just in other places, Dan. I don't know, but this is not the same defensive team anymore.
No, I mean, I think I truthfully was surprised they haven't moved on from Mike Zimmer, to be honest with you. You know, being the hockey guy, when you see like what happened with the Flyers with Vigneault, it's like you can clearly see the message is not getting through to the players anymore. So that team's been a disappointment considering the talent they have on both sides of the ball. So I just think they are not receiving or giving a crap about the message anymore. So I really think it's time to move on from him. That being said, I just don't, talent aside, his scheming ability aside, they have not been a good team. And I look for big things from David Montgomery.
So this is what I want you to do, Dan, because I don't have this. So we're doing the cores, running back, quarterback, receiver. So once we're going to go receiver now. I want you to write down who your running back, quarterback, receiver is, so I can post this up on the board. So when we're done, so everybody can see it. So right now I'm starting with Josh Allen, Myles Gaskin. And running back to me is a different dynamic. Now, receiver, completely different. Receiver, it is what it is. Listen, because again, first of all, got to tip my cap to Cooper Kupp. We're not picking him because that is a postponed game. But I have to say, what he's been able to do this year, I would have never predicted. So I was dead wrong. There's things I predicted were right. I predicted Jonathan Taylor and Austin Eckler to finish in the top 5 for fantasy running backs this year. I will be right on that. I predicted Robert Woods to be the top beneficiary of the Matthew Stafford regime. I was wrong. It was Cooper Kupp. And Cooper Kupp is having a Marvin Harrison type elite year. And I'm telling you, 151 targets is absolutely absurd right now. I watched that last game. I could see why this guy he's playing hurt. He's playing nicked up. He's unstoppable. It's funny. And I hate to get in that comparison because we always do, with the white receivers, right? We always do that. It's always like Wes Welker. But this guy, the way he's built, he reminds me of Kevin Curtis. And not obviously much more talented than Kevin Curtis, but he's got the strong thighs. He's got the strong upper body. That's what was good about Kevin Curtis. And I think that's what's taking him to this next level. He's basically unstoppable, Dan. But unfortunately, we can't pick him. So I'm going to go with the next best guy, and that's going to be Davante Adams.
Yeah, it's my guy too.
Right? So I'm going to tell you what, though. My 1B is going to be Deebo Samuel. So 1A, 1B, because Deebo is playing up against Atlanta, who they are the second worst team against the run with 110 yards plus per game they average. And Deebo Samuel with no Elijah Mitchell is going to be, again, probably getting about 8 to 10 carries. So, Deebo Samuel could 100% for $700 less in DFS be your core wide receiver. But I'm going with Davante Adams. There is no Marlon Humphreys out there in Baltimore. That defense is not what it was. And Aaron Rodgers is playing, again, last 2 weeks out of his mind. So he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. This is go time for AR. So for me, Davante Adams is your 100% guy. Dan, you say you agree?
Yeah, and if I had to go to my 1B guy, it's Chris Godwin.
Ooh, okay.
He's
I like Godwin.
He's been the snap count leader at wide receiver position as well. And my quarterback would be Brady.
Oh, so you're okay. So you're going Mr. TB.
Yeah, I mean, I was going if I want to save some money, like if I need to make a lineup where I'm like hit or miss with a few $100 off. I mean, I have no problem with Kyler Murray as being my next guy. I think he's got a great matchup against Detroit.
He does. The only thing that scares me about those games is I feel like they get out of hand so early sometimes that it just hinders all the value. So as much as everybody buys in on those, especially for the quarterback position, it scares me because it's like what's going to happen is they go up 35-3, and then it's like, oh, they're not throwing anymore, so you're screwed. And if there's a couple defensive touchdowns, you're really screwed. So who's your quarterback? Yeah, it's Brady. Who's your running back?
Montgomery.
So you're going Brady, Montgomery, Adams / Godwin.
Correct.
All right, so we'll put that up later. So let's get this going. We got about 15 minutes left here because we don't want to take an hour of your time. We appreciate everybody tuning in. So let's go with our sneaky values. And again, I love this because good value for week 15, and there's a ton of it. There's an absolute ton of it, and again. Because of those postponed games, it just opened up value for a lot. And this we do good value, low risk, high reward. These are all the same. Good value, low risk, high reward. But for me, for good value, when we talk about quarterbacks, is even though I can't stand this guy, okay, I can't stand this guy, but I gotta look to Jimmy G. And Jimmy G, how crazy, right? Jimmy G's been playing out of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And 5,800 again this week goes up against the lowly Atlanta Falcons at home in San Francisco. Jimmy G has been averaging 66% over the past 3 games. If you go back his past 5, he's averaging 69 to 70%. And I know he likes that 69 number because he dates porn stars. But at the end of the day, it is the truth. I want to come back as Jimmy G just for a couple weeks. I'll see if I can handle it. But you look at that point total, and again, for 5,800 going against Atlanta, this could be a very good 21 to 28 point scenario. When you can get 21 to 28 points for $5,800 from your quarterback position, and you're building up guys like Devontae Adams at 8,000, then you have a really good. You could get Devontae and Debo. You could bang out Jimmy G and Debo in the same lineup and Devontae Adams, and still have money left up to get another elite player. So for me this week, Jimmy G is one of my value plays. How about you, Dan? What you got?
I have Joe Burrow as one of my value plays.
Okay.
I like Cincinnati to win outright this week at Denver.
Outright.
I think they're a better team. I have them I'm in a pretty intense high value pool that I have to pick 4 games every single week, and the payout's outrageous. And I've climbed the number 6 in this league. So, dinner will be on me, Tone, if I keep climbing. And I have Cincinnati as one of my plays in my top 4 this week. So
okay.
if I have them win, and Joe Burrow has got to have a good game, and he's $300 more expensive than Jimmy G, and a hell of a lot.
That's not a lot.
Right. So, so then that brings up his weapons, Higgins and Chase. But yeah, I like Joe Burrow as a bargain. I think at Denver is scaring, I guess, DraftKings for his
Mile high wins.
But
right,
I have a gut feeling about this game.
Malachi checking in. What's up, Malachi? Checking in. Pick 2. Rashad Penny, AJ Dillon, Devonta Freeman, Myles Gaskin. This one is 100% easy to me.
Bookends.
Yes. First of all, I will say this. So I said this the other day. So I did about a 15-minute radio hit for Fox Sports The Gambler. Check me out on there as well at Fox PHL Gambler, doing the fancy stuff over there for them as well. And I talked about secret value plays going into the playoffs. And last year, Dan, you'll remember this, David Montgomery came out of nowhere in the second half of the year and essentially was on everybody's Super Bowl roster in playoff fantasy. Rashad Penny is going to be that guy. Rashad Penny, 16 rushes, 137 yards last week, and he's on a team that has struggled to find consistency at the running back position. Ever since Chris Carson went down, they have struggled. It hasn't been Alex Collins, hasn't been able to stay healthy, right? It's not DJ Dallas. These guys, it's Rashad Penny. You've seen it last week. And Pete Carroll's an old school guy. He loves to run the ball. And Russell Wilson is still not 100%. So this is a recipe for fantasy success. Rashad Penny, 100% lock him in. He is going to be your guy. And we talked about Myles Gaskin earlier. He's my core running back this week. I love what they're doing against the Jets, against a bad team with no Jalen Waddle. They're going to have to formulate. It's going to be Gesicki and Gaskin. The double G connection this week in Miami, that's who is going to lift you up. So I want Devonta Freeman with the Huntley experiment. I even though I like Devonta, I can't do it. AJ Dillon, a nice second piece, but Aaron Jones, 2 touchdowns last week. At the end of the year, it's always going to be Aaron Jones territory. If you haven't followed Green Bay enough, what they do, they hold out, they hold out Aaron Jones. They hold his workload down, and then at the last 4 or 5 weeks, he starts to be that stud guy again, and that's exactly what's happening. So, Rashad Penny, Gaskin, I think, Dan, you're shaking your head. I think you agree.
I said bookends the second it popped up.
Yeah.
So, and to build on Gaskins a little bit, because I don't know if I was on when you went on your Gaskins. So it goes back to the value at quarterback. I think you have to look at Tua the way you look at Jimmy G this week as well.
Yeah.
Because if we're talking Gesicki and Gaskins getting a lot of, Gaskins going to get a lot of dump off passes, Tua's going to get him the ball, and they're playing just the god awful Jets team. So I think Tua just by accident is going to have 2 or 3 touchdowns this week.
Yeah, I agree. Tua's a great play this week. He is
5,700.
Anytime under 6,000 for a quarterback, 100%. Our man Javon, check him out on Twitter at JOAlfred. I was just going to say .com, but on Twitter at JOAlfred. Does a lot of great things on with us sometimes. He does things for DraftKings, has his own sports network, TSN. So, again, Jimmy G has been a good play in DFS season long and for touchdown pass prop bets over the last few weeks. He has. And as much as I hate to admit it, he really has. Oh, hold on. Prince is killing me. Like, again, what's Penny is out. What happened here?
Collins. What's going on here?
Yeah, wait a minute. See, this is why you do these shows live.
Penny is out.
This is what happens. You do these shows live. Well, it's the postpone game. It's the postpone game. So again, you don't know what's going to happen in that game, but
this guy with this wasn't a DFS play. This was a fantasy question, right?
Yeah, this is season long.
But is he one of the players that's out?
So what
does he mean out of this weekend's DFS slate?
Let's see. He's out of the DFS league.
Yeah, that for sure. But this guy was talking about his fantasy.
I think that's we're talking about. We're just talking about season long. I think because I'm looking, and I don't see it's okay. You just Prince, you scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, he's not injured or on the COVID list. He's just pushed back.
Right. Yeah, because he's my guy. He's my guy. Yeah, he says Seattle's postponed. Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. You scare me. You just had me looking. I just had 8 screens up right now.
Yeah.
Looking through
yeah. So for the purpose of that gentleman's question, which is his year-long fantasy, that's the play because that has no effect on his year-long fantasy lineup.
Look at Emma checker. See, this is where you gotta lay. You gotta give your hat off to the bots. All right, this is a typical bot. Yeah, what's up, Emma? How you doing? Oh, look at the bots coming in. Oh, Gladys. It's Gladys Knight the Pips. So she's coming in with the bots. I love it.
Or the Pips.
So Prince, to get to your question, my man, Robinson, Patterson, or Connor for running back. I'll tell you what. That's a great threesome right there.
It really is.
Jimmy G might even agree that's a great one of his better threesomes. But Robinson, Patterson, like I said, man,
you got to get the Mike Zimmer glasses off, Tony.
So here's my thing. It's funny. I profiled a couple guys the other day. One of them was Rashad Penny. Another one was James Robinson. And I think James Robinson is a fantastic play this week. Number one, Urban Meyer just killed everything on that Jacksonville team.
Yes.
You could see. right? He was more busy trying to get in, getting on the what of some of the college girls than he was actually coaching a football team, right? And he just looked like an egotistical windbag, in my opinion. So, just watching him not shake hands and act like this guy didn't have a clue. He was not ready to be an NFL head coach. James Robinson is the guy. Carlos Hyde in concussion protocol. First of all, he's probably not going to play. And if he does play, he's 31 years old and he stinks. There's a reason why he's been bounced around the league. Come on. Do you really think Carlos Hyde, people are buying into the Carlos Hyde experiment? Stop. He's a stiff. James Robinson is the guy. He's going to get the full workload this week. Okay. I love me some James Robinson. Huge potential. And going forward, he's got some great plays where he also plays Houston and the Jets. And Houston, they give up 110 yards per game on the ground. That team is already packed it in. Patterson has been a stud. I'll give you that. He really has. But that San Francisco defense is still pretty good. So, again, I don't really buy all in with Patterson. James Conner's been a stud. He has. He's second in fantasy running backs with touchdowns. And again, Jigsaw is going to pat himself on the back because I got a lot of questions in the preseason. Is it Edmonds or is it Conner? I told everybody, get yourself some James Conner shares because just knowing the way they were going to run an offense. Obviously, I couldn't predict that Edmonds would get hurt. But even before he got hurt, it was still Conner's team. So, but for this week, Prince, I'm going to go James Robinson. I know that was long-winded, but Dan, what do you think?
James Robinson is hard from the perspective that he was being punished by Meyer. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. He was one of the vocal players, and he just wasn't given the ball the past 2 games. So now that he's gone, I expect him to get his role back. So he's definitely a healthy guy and probably an angry and motivated guy. And he's playing against a terrible Houston team.
At home, by the way.
Yeah, so I do like that play. I would go Conner next and Patterson third, but Conner is on my bold predictions section because with everything Tony just said, I'm on board with. And even if Edmonds comes back today, I still think Conner has earned the right to get the bulk of the carries, and I think this could be an out-of-hand game. So why really rush Edmonds back from his injury when the game's out of control, give him extra rest? So I do like Conner as a really close 1A, which is probably not making my your decision easier, the Prince. Because now you're like, well, is he leaning back towards Conner? I kind of am, but Robinson, the only thing about Robinson is the unknown of him not being on anyone's radar the past few weeks because he was being punished, but he's not going to be punished anymore.
And there's nobody else to run the ball, Dan.
Right. No. So I do go Robinson, and I gambled on Robinson last week in one of my lineups, thinking that was that pettiness would end, and he got 5 carries. So it didn't end, and I was pissed.
And that's what happens. Now let me get into some other value here by a question. Arizona Cardinals. You bring up James Conner. Let's stay on the Arizona Cardinals. DeAndre Hopkins out, killing me. D-Hop kill another. I lost on the same team this year. I've lost Derrick Henry and D-Hop and still have managed to make the playoffs. I don't know how. You know how I made the playoffs? I snuck in last week. I picked up Rashad Penny and the Kansas City Chiefs defense and got 70 points combined from both of them. And that's how I won. So I've been streaming guys all year long, and now I get streamed again. So let me ask you this. I want to know who you think is the biggest beneficiary of D-Hop being out. Right? So there's a lot of plays here. So I'm curious to see where your mind's going if it's on the same page as me. But who do you think is the biggest beneficiary on that offense?
I'm gonna go Christian Kirk, and then obviously AJ Green as well. But I think Christian Kirk has a big week this week. Is that where you were?
I like Kirk. Yeah. I like Kirk, but I'm going to go the complete opposite. I think that Zach Ertz is 100%.
Oh, I thought you meant from the wide receiver position.
No, just from offense.
No, yeah, Zach Ertz is one of my tight end plays this week for sure.
Listen, he has the best route running ability and the best hands on that team right now with D-Hop out, obviously. I'm not going to the ageless veteran in AJ Green. I know he had a good week last week, but it's not going to continue. I love Christian Kirk a lot, but don't sleep on Rondell Moore. I keep saying this, right? Don't sleep. This kid is dynamic. He is.
He's very dynamic.
Yeah, and if they get him in the right opportunities, which they will, okay, because I bought into Cliff Kingsbury. So if they get him in the right offensive mindset and the right scheme, the right play, this kid, sky's the limit. And we talk about value. I mean, you're talking about a $4,400 receiver, and he's only $500 less than AJ Green. So that's what you have to look at. So DraftKings and FanDuel, they know. They know this kid's special. And they're going up against Detroit in a dome. You don't have to worry about weather. You don't have to worry about anything. And here's the best thing about Rondell Moore this week. We talked about earlier about games that are blown out of control, games that are garbage, games that kill your studs. Guess what? If this game gets out of control, Rondell Moore is still going to be on the field. And he's still going to be getting garbage time. So for me, 4,400, I think the biggest beneficiary, obviously, I think is Zach Ertz. As long as he's healthy. I know he's still dealing with that shoulder at 5,400. I think he could be the top tight end on the slate this week, but I love me some Rondell Moore. Low value, low risk, huge reward, awesome value play this week, and going forward, to be honest with you.
You could do a quad stack, hold the pickles with that team.
Yeah, there you go.
Kyler Murray, James Conner,
Ertz, Zach Ertz,
Rondell Moore.
That could be nice. That could be nice. Now, Charles checking in. Thoughts on Jeff Wilson versus Atlanta? Interesting that you say that. Very, very interesting. Because a lot of people I'm going to just flip over my sheet here because I think Jeff Wilson at 5,000 is a very, very good play. But
Elijah, man.
Temper your expectations, though. Right? Because we've been through this before. As a fantasy community, when we thought Jeff Wilson was going to be the guy and he just flat out sucked, right? And then all of a sudden, Deebo Samuel's getting 12 carries, 10 carries, right? JaMychal Hasty's getting a better, points per average when it comes to the running back position. So Jeff Wilson, again, last week, you know what he did? He gave you 5 points. Right? Know what he did in week 11 as the number one guy? Gave you 6 points. Week 10 as one of the top guys, gave you 3 points. So is this the Jeff Wilson that we really know? I'm going to be honest with you. I don't trust him.
No.
I don't trust him. So for $5,000, this is the way I look. If we're talking about a specific DFS mindset, when you go to these running backs and you look at 5,000, you see Jeff Wilson there, it's easy to go pluck him off I'm going to pivot. And I'll go more on Jeff Wilson in a minute, but I would rather pay $5,000 for Devin Singletary. And I'll tell you why later, because he's one of my value plays this week. But Jeff Wilson, to me, I just can't trust him. So if it's season long and that's who you have to go with, because quite honestly, there is no waiver wire running backs right now, then you have to roll with them and just hope that he gets the production and the volume. But from a DFS standpoint, I'm going somewhere else because I think this will be Debo's running show, in my opinion.
Last year at this time, I was riding the horses of Wilson, David Johnson, and David Montgomery. You remember my David Johnson love this time of the year?
What happened to him?
Well, but last year, those were the guys that were the unexpected guys that got hot, and you could ride them for 3 or 4 games and just know you were going to get guaranteed production, but not this year. Elijah Mitchell's taken over that team.
Yeah, 100%. And don't leave out next year's going to be Trey Sermon. I'm going to tell you that right now. That kid's special. He just has to learn the playbook and learn how to pass protect, and he'll be good to go and stay healthy. Let me ask you, you mentioned Montgomery. Let me ask you real fast before we get into bold predictions and, and the show. Justin Fields. I sneakily think, and this is for everybody in a season-long league, especially that struggled at the quarterback position. Now, let me go on this quick little dissertation about the quarterback position, because I brought this up yesterday. Now, I came into this year, especially with the COVID year, with the expectation that I was going to draft a very solid backup. I'm the guy who doesn't draft backup quarterbacks. I don't care. I think they're a wasted pick. I went from not drafting a solid backup to saying I'm going to draft 2 quarterbacks in the first 10 rounds. only because I didn't know what to expect with COVID protocols. So the one league that I'm in, I drafted Patrick Mahomes as my top guy, and I drafted Ryan Tannehill as my backup. At that time, thought Ryan Tannehill would have an MVP caliber type of year with the new high-powered offense they employ in Tennessee. Now, I can't predict that they were going to have injuries, things were going to work out, yada, 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 right? So maybe you're in a situation, and Patrick Mahomes, just for everybody to know, this is how you got to deep dive into fantasy analytics. Everybody thinks he stinks. He's not having a good year. You're right. Week to week, he sucked. But overall, he's still the 5th best quarterback in fantasy. That just shows you the parity this year at that position, right? So what I will say is, if you're looking on a waiver wire and he's still available, because he could be, Justin Fields could very sneakily be a guy to lead you in these next couple weeks. He has really revitalized his game. 230 yards through the air average since he's been back since week 7. Since that debacle on week 7 against Tampa Bay with all the picks, that's gone. It's a new Justin Fields. 75 plus yards per game on the ground and at least 1 touchdown. So Justin Fields could 100% give you 230 to 250, a touchdown in the air, 70 yards on the ground, and a touchdown on the ground. You can't get that. You can't get that. So that's an easy 25 point per week player. He's averaging 21 right now since week 7. So don't sleep on a guy named Justin Fields. So I don't know what you think, Dan, but I'm really liking what I see from Justin.
No, he's definitely gotten much better. I mean, he looked like a deer in the headlights when he first came in.
Yep.
But now he has that air of confidence about him. So which to me lends me to believe he's understanding the offense better. So we can only hope that he relies on, for my sake, a lot of dump off passes to David Montgomery, who's going to have a big week, or play action off of David Montgomery's running success this week.
100%.
Little Cole Kmet action.
Maybe
Darnell Mooney action.
Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, Jimmy Graham. Yeah, there's it's interesting. They're not a talentless laden team. They have some decent players on that roster. They just need to get their act together.
Nah. No, you're right. 100%. 100%. Let's do this. Let's go a couple before we get bold predictions. We got about 12 minutes left, maybe about 5 minutes left, depending on how long-winded we get.
Cut the difference.
But low risk, high reward.
All right.
Players that you're looking at this week. You give me 2, I'll give you my 2, and then we'll go bold predictions, and any questions that come in, we'll answer them. Let me go with. I'll go on.
I thought you were going to go with. I thought you were going to go with me. Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, you know what? You're the guest. Even though it took you forever to get on the show, I'll give you a mulligan with that. But
oh man, I don't understand it, Tone. It kept saying Google Chrome not responding, and I was
see, internet is a scary. Go ahead, man. Who you got?
So I'm doing this in honor of you. You talked about your core quarterback is Allen, correct?
Yes.
What wide receiver do you love on that team that always gets lowballed with his DFS value?
Oh, I know you're going Gabby.
Yes.
How'd I know?
Yeah, so I think that's a great play.
I love him, man.
And I am going to go. If we're going to do the Gaskins and Tua train, I'm going to go some Devontae Parker, 4,300 against the Jets.
Oh, I like it.
That dude, if on the right team, would be an elite receiver. He's lost in Miami. He's a damn good receiver that no one talks about.
Matt, remember when the Eagles there was all that talk about getting Devontae Parker? Imagine him on this team.
They should have. He's a big target, talented receiver. So those are my two value plays at wide receiver this week. 4,300 and 3,700. My God, you add them together and they don't equate to the high-end receivers on the board.
That's a lot of value right there. A lot of value. And I like it. I like me some Gabriel Davis.
I know. I was for you. I was for you, boss.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I do. I definitely like that. So I'm gonna go with another guy that I'm never a huge fan of, but I'm gonna go with Big Ben.
Yeah.
So 5,600. Here's what I liked about Big Ben last week. Number one, whenever you have a quarterback that comes out and knows it's going to be his last year, for some reason, once they start talking about that, they start to ramp it up. Okay. And for whatever reason, Big Ben went from a 58 to 60% completion rate to 68 to 70 in 2 weeks. He had his best game from a fantasy perspective all year last week against Minnesota, which I know their defense is trash. But the week before against Baltimore, he still gave you a 20. But what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the attempts. From week 11, he's averaging 42 per game. He's giving you a 68 to 70% completion percentage. He's throwing for 250 plus, and he's throwing for multiple touchdowns. This is a good match this week at home against Tennessee, who they've had their issues in the secondary. They really have. They have some players, but they've also dealt with some injuries, and that team's still not a consistent team, in my opinion. And Big Ben is getting a little more healthy. As long as that line protects him, he'll be good. So, in my opinion, 5,600, I like Big Ben as a really good value play. But my sneaky play this week, I already talked about Rondell Moore, but I'm going to go to the frozen tundra in Green Bay. And I'm going to go with my man, Allen Lazard. And the reason why I'm going to go with Lazard is because even though Devontae Adams is the guy out there, I've always thought that Allen Lazard could 100% be the guy to step up and be that number 2 that Aaron Rodgers loves. That Devontae, not Devontae, that Antonio Freeman-esque receiver, that Donald Driver-esque receiver, that guy that is not elite but really good. And Allen Lazard last week actually showed that. Now you have a questionable MVS. You have Randall Cobb on IR, right? So you're going against, again, Baltimore with no Marlon Humphreys, which is their top corner. Their defense is decimated a little bit by injury. And Aaron Rodgers playing out of his mind. Last week, 7 targets, 6 catches out of those 7 targets. So you're talking about a 90% catch to value ratio right there, 12.5 average, a long of 32 and a touchdown for $4,000, plus he's a plus 500 when it comes to DraftKings. I love Allen Lazard this week. So for my money, if you're looking at a receiver really, really cheap, Allen Lazard to me is one of those guys. So Dan, let's get to the bold predictions of the show. I love it. I want you to go first too, as I type in some of our picks here so everybody can see them, so we can screenshot them and review them towards the end. Give me your take on a couple bold predictions, whether 1 or 2 doesn't matter, and just kind of go into what your logic is with that.
All right. I am going to go David Montgomery and James Conner combined will have 4 touchdowns today.
Wow. James Conner. So go ahead. I'm typing.
And David Montgomery.
Conner and Monty
will have 4 touchdowns.
Combined, right?
Combined.
So you think it's 2 and 2?
Not 8. No, yeah, it's combined. Yeah, 2 and 2. And I'll take the backdoor 3 and 1.
Hey, so will Jimmy G.
Yeah. And I don't know. I haven't been on in a couple weeks, and I apologize, but I believe my last bold prediction wasn't too far off. I don't know if you have that written down.
I don't have it written down. Do you remember what it was?
No, but I remember that.
It was like a 1 and 1.
It was close. It was close. I think I had the yards, and I think I was a touchdown short or something like that.
Yeah, it was it was one of those 1 and 1s for sure. So bold predictions are fun, right? Hot takes, bold predictions, whatever you want to talk about. We talked about Myles Gaskin on the show, and I love Myles Gaskin. Right? I talked about this. James Robinson, we talked about. So I'm going to predict. I went double D's last week on my bold prediction because everybody likes some double D's, right? So Devontae, hey, nothing wrong with that, right? I got to give everybody some love. Hey, I love Dunkin' Donuts, but at the end of the day, I was close. I said Foreman and Freeman would finish as top 5 fantasy running backs, and one of them did, one of them didn't. That's okay. This week, I'm going Myles Gaskin and James Robinson in the top 3 for fantasy running backs. One of those guys will be number 1. James Robinson or Myles Gaskin will be the top fantasy running back this week. It's bold. I get it, but that's what it's all about. I love their matchups. I love their backstory. I love their analytics going in, whether we trust them or not. I think this is the week that this bold prediction hits on both sides. So I'm going Gaskin Robinson as in the top 3 for fantasy running backs.
I do like the Robinson one a lot. I really do.
Yeah, the stage is setting up. That's the thing.
He's
right?
going to vie for he's going to be vying with Montgomery in that top 5.
Yes,
number 1 overall.
So we didn't get to this last guy I wanted to get to. I forgot. So I want to get your thoughts real quick in Detroit on my man, Mr. Amon St. Brown. So a lot of people, when you talk about Detroit, obviously because of their place within the NFL right now, nobody's really looking at them from a fantasy perspective because also Jared Goff blows too. But TJ Hawkinson out. He had surgery, done for the year. DeAndre Swift, who they love, still isn't, he's still not healthy 100%, whether he comes back or not, still not healthy, right? So Amon St. Brown has basically been target monster the last couple weeks. And we talk about, and I know Pittsburgh John's not with us today, but he's a big volume guy. I'm a big volume guy. You talk about volume, that's huge, especially for the receiver position. And now St. Brown is going to be the top guy. And whether they're down, whether they're ahead, doesn't matter. They're going to be throwing the ball. And he's going to be the biggest beneficiary on that team. And he's cheap. He's a really good streaming value play, whether you're talking about DFS, whether you're talking about season long. What's your take on St. Brown this week? Or even going forward?
Well, I mean, he's gonna be the guy out of necessity based on what you're saying, and that it is all about the targets, and it is all about snap count, and he's on the field a lot. So I do like that a lot. And I'm drawing a blank on the other kid that I've played.
Khalif Raymond.
Yes, he's the other guy I like. I've had him a couple weeks, and I hit on him one week, and might have been against the Eagles. No, they didn't play the Eagles. Yeah, they did play the Eagles. So one week I had Raymond, and he did well for me, and 1 week he did not do well for me. But the chemistry that St. Brown is building with Goff, it's clearly there. And his rookie status, again, he's now getting used to the playbook. And so between growing growing with the program, learning the playbook, the chemistry with the quarterback, the injuries that you just alluded to, and his price point, it's totally worth the flyer.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. When you talk about volume and price point, I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's what you have to look at. I mean, that is that 100%. I mean, we talk about that all the time. And a lot of times the good players are on the bad teams, especially when it comes to fantasy. It's just the way it works. So many times, year after year, that has 100% happened. Right, where you have one of the worst guys in the league. I mean, I thought Michael Carter was going to be that guy for the Jets this year. He just can stay healthy, right? But that was a guy who I thought, oh, this is a perfect role, right? Perfect role. I thought Philip Lindsay was that guy when he was with Houston. I thought perfect role, right? So you look at that, but essentially, guys like St. Brown, especially this end of the year, especially when you have to, you're streaming players more than any other year. This is the spot right here. This is the spot where these guys are going to be highly valuable, especially moving forward. So Dan, any final thoughts? It doesn't even have to be about a specific player, but final thoughts as we go into playoff week 15 in fantasy football.
Well, I mean, the obvious final thought is this whole COVID nonsense. I would, it's a split thinking process or thought process on the fairness of this whole Washington Eagles debacle. Some people feel like, why are the Eagles getting punished? Not from the perspective of they're taking advantage of a weak Washington team, but they get punished on the back end against the Giants by having a short rest week. So the NFL they kind of threw the gauntlet down, saying if you have an undisciplined team and have COVID, you're going to forfeit your games. Well, yeah, forfeit didn't happen, but it's just interesting. I mean, from a competitor competition point of view, I remember me as a competitive baseball player, played my freshman year of college before injury. I didn't like playing against crappy teams. I just didn't get motivated as well when I played against crappy teams that you just knew you're going to blow out. So from an athletic point of view, from a fandom point of view, I don't want to get a cheap victory because I'm playing against a team that is absolutely decimated. But for a team that's fighting for the playoffs and when I see my team rested, that's where I'm torn. So I'm just curious on your thoughts on the whole fairness, competitive edge, even from the perspective of, are the Eagles at risk? Are more players going to come out during the week with COVID that might have been blocking and tackling and snot to snot, face mask to face mask with the Eagles on the field? And are the Eagles at risk? No one really talks about that perspective, so I'm just curious on your thoughts.
Yeah, it's crazy. My whole thing is you have to do the same for everyone. And it's happening in the NBA as well, right? I hate to say it because obviously we are out of Philly, so we're more tuned into the Philly market, and it's happened with the Sixers where they were forced to play with a very watered down roster, and then other games now are starting to be postponed. Is it because they're learning from mistakes? Maybe they're saying we should have done this in the beginning, but unfortunately, one way you have to think, because I think there's two schools of thought here. So one thought is, great, they're learning from their mistakes. I'm glad that they're doing this. The other school of thought is there's a huge disadvantage now for teams going forward because they haven't been afforded that same, opportunity to go against an inferior team and get a cheap win, whether we like it or not. But then you have to put health and safety in the forefront. I mean, we talk about, especially in the NFL, this is where I think a lot of people are hypocritical, and I'll end on this. A lot of people, when they talk about the CTE issue, and you just see Vincent Jackson just came out diagnosed CTE phase 2. When we talk about head injuries, we buy in to the health and safety of the players. Well, you're going to have to buy into the health and safety of the players as well when it comes to COVID protocols. So as much as we may not like it, as much as we may hate it, we have to take the gambling aspect out. We have to take the fandom out. And we just have to say they're doing what's best for the players, even though they might have not done them earlier. They're doing what's best for them moving forward. Because, Dan, listen, just from a personal standpoint, we've been dealing with this for a year and a half in everyday life. And at the end of the day, my kids are my world. So my kids, I try to protect them from everything. So anything I can do, I'm going to protect them. So I think that that league's office is treating this the same way. And whether we like it or not, we're probably not going to. And the players obviously don't like it because, listen, beyond whether you're pro-mask, whether you're against a mask, it doesn't matter. When you walk into a store, listen, I wear a mask, right? I'm vaccinated. I got no problem saying that, right? I believe in it. But there's times I get ready to walk into a store and I see the man, I'm like, damn, I got to go to my car and get my mask. Yeah, I'm frustrated, but I still put it on. It's the same thing on a different level. These players are frustrated, rightfully so. But at the end of the day, I think they have to think about health and safety as number one. Whether it rules out or not, I don't know. That's just my take on it. So let me ask you this real fast because I want to go through the review. It's Monty and who for your 4 touchdowns? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. James Conner.
Conner, that's it. All right. 4 TDs total. All right, so we're going to run this down. And again, great show, as always. Everybody checking in. Absolutely love it. We're going to go first with cores. This is Tony's core. And again, this is picking a running back, a receiver, and and a quarterback. Josh Allen, Myles Gaskin, Devontae Adams, or Deebo Samuel. Your 1A and 1B when it comes to receivers. They're the guys I would build around. Who Dan's building around is Brady, Monty, Devontae Adams, or Chris Godwin. Another 1A, 1B. Still fantastic core. Love it. Value wide receivers from both of us. Just talking about Rondell Moore, Alan Lazard, Gabriel Davis, guys that could very well easily exceed their value. How about value quarterbacks? In Jimmy G, Big Ben, Tuitt, and Justin Fields could be some really good guys for streaming options, right? Value running backs. J-Rob, we'll talk about Monty, Gaskin, and obviously Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny, especially from a season-long standpoint, not DFS, because we're talking both. Dan's bold take of the week, Monty and Connor, 4 touchdown totals, whether it be a 3-1 backdoor play, like we know a Jimmy G special, or a 2-2, whatever it may happen to be. We're in on the 4 touchdowns, and my bold take will be Gaskin and J-Rob to finish as top 3 running backs for fantasy. One of them will be number 1. But as always, man, this has been fantastic. Dan, I want to thank you for joining in. Technical difficulties, that's what this world's all about. It happens. Earlier, my man Prince checking in. Trevor, Trey, good luck. And everybody that checks in, again, give us a follow at Win Daily Sports. You'll love it. I'm telling you, sign up. You get the free month, you get the free Discord. A lot of degenerates in there, and they love every single minute of it. Great coaching as well. Give me a follow at Cutillo23, Dan at DMG Teach, and as always at Heat Ratio Sports, doing big things over there as well. Subscribe on the YouTube channels. Hit the notification bell on both, whether it be the Fantasy Firebox on Win Daily. You're probably already subscribed, but also multi-platform Fantasy Firebox on Heat Ratio Sports as well. Everybody, last weekend in before Christmas, I hope everybody has a happy and healthy holiday, because we will not be live next week, because I will hopefully be enjoying the Christmas season. So as always, everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and we will catch you next time. And good luck on the NFL playoffs.